Hello, this is Darren Pulsipher, Chief Solution Architect of Public Sector at Intel, and welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology. On today's episode, Securing the Supply Chain with former Lieutenant General Thomas Horlander. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Darren, and thanks for having me. I look forward to our discussion today.
So Thomas has joined us recently at Intel, joined the Intel public sector team. Another great hire. We've hired quite a few former military that have just brought so much depth to our team. And Thomas, you were in the Army, Lieutenant General. Tell us a little bit about your background, and so the audience can get to know you a little bit.
Well, so Darren, I joined the Army back in 1983 after I had got my bachelor's degree in the great state of Washington. And when I joined the Army, we were going through the country was going through some tough economic times. I had come from a military family. My father served in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars in the United States Air Force. And I basically graduated from college with a bachelor's degree in finance. Thought I was going to have this blossoming career in the private sector. Things were pretty tough. So I quickly realized that living back at home with my mom and dad and sleeping in the same bed I did when I was 12 years old was not what I had aspired to do with my life. So I sought out the military and I joined, went to basic training and then officer candidate school and started a career that I thought was going to be about 3 to 5 years long. And it turned out to be 39 years of service in the United States Army. And I just recently retired last year, as you said, as a 3-star lieutenant general. I did a lot of work in the field artillery as a younger officer in the combat arms field. And then at about year 18, I became a comptroller. And served in that capacity for the final 20 years or so of my life, with my final position being the comptroller of the Army. And I retired out of that position here just about a year ago today. It was the 1st of October a year ago. And so loved the Army, loved serving. A lot of people come up and thank you for my service, but I just like to tell everybody I was the lucky one to get to wear the uniform and serve our country for as long as I did.
Well, I'm gonna echo what many other people have said, and thank you very much for your dedication to our country and serving. Today, we want to talk a little bit today about supply chain, and because you were the comptroller of the Army, you know a lot about supply chain. You know a lot about
okay.
About if I
Yeah.
say so, you know a lot more than I do, And also, we've got this CHIPS Act that was recently passed. Can you tell the audience a little bit about how the CHIPS Act plays with our national security and with our Department of Defense?
So for me, I would tell you, as I joined, so let me just back up for a second, Darren, and tell you, as I retired, and I knew I didn't want to be retired and just stay at home, and I did want to pursue a second career, but I wanted something that was really meaningful. I wanted to get with a good organization that had a meaningful mission, great people, and I would tell you, I struck gold. I absolutely struck gold when I got a phone call from Greg Clifton, which started the process of me being able to join the One Intel team. And what a privilege, what a pleasure. I would tell you, I absolutely love it. And I would tell you, it's such a great opportunity for me to continue to contribute and to serve our fellow countrymen. I can tell you, I wouldn't have said this 30 years ago, but I think it's in my DNA now that I want to do that. And I would just tell you, being with Intel, I love every day. Great teammates. What a fantastic culture that this organization has, and fantastic leaders. And I really consider myself fortunate. But I guess what I'd tell you is it does not surprise me after these 6-7 months that I've been with this team as to why Intel is an iconic industry leader. And so I really consider myself fortunate. And what really inspires me is that Intel plays this fundamental role in everybody's everyday lives, not just day to day. I mean, you can't get up in the morning without some kind of microelectronics right there at your every move. But it's also that we get an opportunity to influence the future of our country, the future of the world, and our children's future. And so I guess what I tell you, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but I would just say, how wonderful is that?
Oh,
So,
there you go, Pat. Pat will be ecstatic that you tied our newest branding in, right? How wonderful is that? That's awesome.
yeah. So I would tell you, I'm excited. I love this, but it's so interesting when I think back over my life, and I think not that I'm this old man, but when I think back over my life, and you and I are probably about the same age. But
Yeah,
when I joined the Army, Darren, when I joined the Army, we didn't have computers. We didn't have. We probably had microelectronics, but it was such in an embryonic stage. It was probably in just very remote pockets of our society or in the world. I can remember as a young man, our copying machine was this ink drum that you used to crank.
I
And
remember those.
you roll it, and ink would spill on this piece of paper, and that's how you made copies.
Yeah.
We had single channel radios. We used to connect wire from one radio to the other. And, today we talk about microchips, but back then, my big worry as a young officer was, did I have enough D-cell batteries to operate the radios? So when you think about how far we have evolved, and I would tell you, of course, my profession was in the United States military, but I would tell you all segments of society just kind of evolved together as we discovered this wonderful thing called silicon and all of our technological advances. But, I remember the days, one of my first duty assignments was South Korea. And I remember we used to all sit there on Sundays and go to this building where AT&T had these booths. And we'd get in line and we'd wait for the booth. And I think you had like 10 minutes and you could make a stateside phone call. And we'd get in the booth. We'd call our mom and dad or our loved ones, and we'd say, hey, it's me. I'm here. Everything is okay. And that was the extent of telecommunications back in those days. And now, of course, we sit here today and we just speed dial on our cell phone and
you get a video call. Yeah. And it's a video call now.
So it's absolutely amazing. And you heard me joke about this. So people like you and me, you and I remember when we got our first computer.
Oh, yeah. I remember the day.
You and I are digital immigrants, okay? We are not digital natives. We're older than that. But I remember the day that I bought my first computer. It was probably around 1995. And I bought a 286. And I thought to myself, good God, look at this monstrosity. And for some of you out there, this isn't like a box you would very easily put in the backseat of your car, okay? This thing was huge. It weighed 50 pounds. You bought a monitor. It was deeper than it was wide. That one weighed about 50 pounds. You took it home and you asked yourself the question, oh my goodness, where do I put this thing, right? So here we are 30 years later, and we're not saying, oh my goodness, where do we put this thing? We scratch our head and we say, oh my gosh, where did I put that thing?
Yeah. So I have a question about that. So we've become highly dependent on silicon, highly dependent on
Yeah,
technology as a society. Is the military just as highly dependent
absolutely.
on silicon?
Oh, absolutely. I
So,
mean,
I mean
I mean,
that's a big deal then, because our
it's
our
huge.
supply chain
It's huge.
around microelectronics is now highly
It's
important
a
as well.
national security issue. So I like to tell people we have evolved so to the point where where microelectronics shares center stage with the oil industry as a center of gravity when it comes to national security, global security, economic stability. I mean, it is replete across every fiber of society. You know, when you talk about, you hear our CEO talk about ubiquitous compute. Well, it touches everything. So, and when you talk about the military, I would tell you our vehicles, our weapon systems are all microelectronics enabled. Microchips enable us to be more precise, more lethal, less weight, faster effects, a more accurate locating system, better and more reliable communications. The list goes on and on. I
Well,
mean,
and we're seeing that actually in the war in Ukraine right now,
oh, absolutely,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
it's amazing that the Ukraine's been able to do what they've been able to
So,
do because of
absolutely,
microelectronics.
lots of takeaways and lots of great things to learn by seeing how that unfolds there over there in Ukraine with the conflict with Russia.
Hey,
So
so I have a question around that. Do you think that really spurred on this CHIPS Act that we see that was recently passed, and
so
why we're so
um,
concerned about getting the CHIPS Act passed?
so I. Not necessarily the Ukraine conflict. I think
No,
the
but just in
ideation
general,
and
our
the pursuit
dependency.
of
Yeah.
the CHIPS Act was considered necessary long before that. But certainly, when you step back and you look at the global imbalance that we currently are experiencing across the ecosystem, I think, and let me recouch my answer. So let's talk about national security for just a second, okay?
Okay.
So I've been a student of national security my entire career. That's what we do as professional military officers. Um, but when you talk about national security, a lot of people want to immediately migrate to a discussion about defense and the role of the armed forces. But I would tell you, in a country like ours, if you want to talk about how do you ensure that you protect our national security interests, there are a lot of things that go into that, Darren. It's good governance, it's rule of law, it's a prosperous and functioning economy, it's having an effective academia, it's healthcare, and of course, it is the armed forces of the United States. So, what I would tell you is our doctors, our teachers, our construction workers, firemen, police officers, Intel engineers, big shout out to them, right?
Right.
And just about almost all of our professions across American society all play a role in providing for the national security of this country. We don't think about it like that. But
No, we really
imagine
don't. I like that perspective.
but imagine an America that doesn't have a good education system or a good healthcare system or a good law enforcement system, right? Imagine an America like that. That would directly impact our national security. So when you talk about that, you got to talk about it in a more holistic way. And so for me personally, when I think about the CHIPS Act, if you share in what I just told you, then you'll understand that just about every fiber of what it takes to provide for the national security of this country relies on microelectronics.
Yeah.
It relies on microelectronics very heavily and that lovely thing we call silicon. I tell you what, I wish I would have gotten involved in this back 35 years ago. It must have just been so neat to
Oh
watch
yeah. Yeah.
watch
Absolutely.
these amazing minds and these engineers come up with how they were able to do that. I'm inspired by it, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. So now when you talk about the Chips Act, right, and this incredible imbalance that we have across the ecosystem, across our microelectronics industry, um, I kind of look at this over a broader continuum of time, right? This has amazing potential. and it absolutely does have an impact on the national security of our country. And even so much so, we even had some of the leaders in the Department of Defense actually engaged with Congress about the importance of the CHIPS Act. So it's a very important, my view, very important first step. Okay, this is not the be all to how we redistribute um, this balance of capacity and capability in the microelectronics industry. I rolled up my sleeves. I started learning about this, and what I discovered, and I'm going to tell you right now, I had absolutely no idea things were like this even a year ago. But what I discovered is what an incredibly integrated industry this is.
Oh
And you
yeah.
and I have talked about this before, but one day your competitor is company X, and the very next day they're your partner, right? And when you try to unpackage the what I like to call the continuum, or what we call the the core activities of the microelectronics industry, whether it's design or manufacturing, or it's assembly, testing, and packaging, and who makes the equipment, and where do the raw materials come from, and where does the rare earth elements come from. When you start to unpackage that, you start to realize what an incredible mosaic of daily activity this is, and why it's so difficult. Um, to have this very clear sight picture on all of the activity that takes place. I mean, and you know
So
that some of these microchips change hands 5 and 10 times. When I say
yeah,
change,
I'm glad you brought
change
this up
countries,
because yeah,
right?
because what's interesting about this whole thing is, and you mentioned it, no one really understood how complex the supply chain is to build a computer, right? Not
Yes.
until COVID hit. Because what COVID exposed, when everyone needed a computer all of a sudden, and then some factories were shut down in Malaysia because they had an outbreak of COVID, or a factory in Ireland because there was an outbreak of COVID, or
Mhm.
China, or wherever it was, all of a sudden I can't ship a car because it doesn't have a chip in it.
Or you
Or I
can, and it sits in a parking lot until those chips come in, right?
exactly. So I think COVID really kind of exposed this global supply chain, how complex and fragile it really is.
Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, maybe a certain segments of the industry and our society knew that there was this
But very
fragile.
small, I think. I've
Yeah, but I think very
yeah.
small, and I think you're right that the pandemic kind of exposed that, you know. But so right now, I would tell you, and exposed. I had no idea about the global imbalance that we currently have.
Yeah, what is it? 8% in the U.S. 8% of
Yeah,
silicons manufactured in the
yeah,
U.S.
and yeah, I've heard different numbers, but I think ballparkish, we're talking
or is
between
12?
70 and 80% of the microelectronics come out of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And you know that's
Wow.
fundamentally three countries: China, South Korea, and Taiwan.
And Taiwan,
So
yeah.
when you start to learn about that, you quickly realize that rebalancing the ecosystem of the global supply chain and returning capacity and capability to U.S. and friendly soil is absolutely tantamount to being able to rebalance what we have. No industry should have single points of failure. Like I think this microelectronics industry definitely has some areas where there is cause for concern. But I'll tell you, it's exciting, right? And it's refreshing because what I've been observing is I've been observing the ecosystem, the federal government, the defense industrial base. All of them are starting to recognize this problem. You know, the CHIPS Act is obviously um, representative of people's recognition that we had to do something. And I also would tell you, you know, watching the other the big companies in this industry that are now saying, hey, you know, we need to relook our business model and where we have certain things done across this continuum of that microelectronics ecosystem that we have. We need to relook that. We're starting to see, and I think the Chips Act kind of helped with this, but we're starting to see. I know of 6 countries right now that have said they are going to be investing in fabs on U.S. soil here in the next 8 to 10 years. So,
Well, and one of those, of course, is Intel. Okay, let's
oh yeah,
talk a little bit about Ohio, but not just Ohio, the Silicon Heartland now, but
yeah,
Arizona and
yeah,
New Mexico. It's
critical.
amazing the amount of fabs we're building right now.
Sure, sure. The investment that we put in them, what it means to those economies, what it means to the opportunities of young kids who really want to have some kind of a profession in the microelectronics industry, redomesticating capacity and capabilities in the United States of America gives it's what the United States is really birthed upon is opportunity, right? And so to
Yeah.
give them that opportunity is just another great thing about taking this making this effort to redomesticate much of the microelectronics industry here on U.S. and friendly soil.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about Ohio. Ohio, we're building 2 fabs right now, already cut ground,
Right, right.
with a plan to build 8 fabs.
Isn't that
And
exciting? Isn't
it's
that,
exciting. Each fab is $15 billion.
yeah,
That's a lot of money. That's a
that's a big
lot of
money.
money.
That's
Between
a big
12 and
money.
15 billion,
Right.
and the number of jobs it's going to bring into the area, not just
Sure.
hired by Intel, but also
Oh yeah,
other industries that are moving there as well to support.
that whole community, right? I mean, that I saw this, Darren. I saw this with military installations. Okay,
Oh yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
a lot of times the surrounding city or community, lived and breathed by what happened on that military installation, the size of the population, the
Yeah.
infrastructure that was there. I absolutely see that a similar thing happening with what's going to happen there in the new Silicon Heartland. I like that.
This is really fascinating that it's come to this point. I guess that maybe we were lulled to sleep a little bit in as far
Yeah,
as manufacturing in the United States, but I think we're woke. I think we woke up.
yeah. I would say I don't think anybody ever said, "All right, here's the plan. We're going to have a global economy, and 80% of all the microelectronics are going to come out of these 3 countries." So I don't think that was ever the intent. And so, which brings me to a point, and I even heard our CEO kind of say it in these terms. We're a bit in a race against time. That's why
Yeah.
the CHIPS Act was so fundamentally important, right? Was to have this infusion of capital investment to be able to start to build these fabs and to redomesticate our capacity in the United States on a shorter timeline than what would otherwise have been, who knows how long it would have taken us to build the size of the fab or fabs that you just described there in the Silicon Heartland in Ohio.
Yeah. In
That's
fact, what's really cool about those fabs going in, they are our 18 angstrom fabs that are going in. So those that don't know, that's 1.8 nanometers. Those are the nodes that are going in. And 1.8 nanometers, that's really small. To put that into
yeah.
perspective for a lot of people, the coronavirus is 72 nanometers wide. And we're doing transistors at 1.8 nanometers
It's
in
just
those
like
fabs.
that's
Mind blowing.
unimaginable. That's unimaginable,
I know
right?
it's so for those of you that think that, Intel is an old non-innovative company, you don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I tell you what, I never thought that for 1 second.
Yeah. Oh,
And
there are some people that do. It's
well, sure.
amazing the stuff that we do every day.
Yeah, so
Um,
Darren, therein lies a good point though, is uh, being able or having people understand the full capacity and the full capabilities of a company like Intel. You know, we describe it as this iconic founder of microelectronics, but what they do today is just as impressive as what we used to do, 30 plus years ago at the beginning of the building of the microelectronics industry. So it's really important for people to step back and take a look at that. I mean, what is it? We have 20,000 software and hardware engineers in this company.
No, just 25,000 software engineers.
Oh, software. Okay.
Just software. If you start adding our hardware and silicon engineers,
what a
yeah.
that's absolutely amazing. And I see that and I hear that and I think to myself, yeah, do people realize not just how important that is to the country, but to the world,
Yeah.
right? To the world and to those things that I spoke about earlier, our national security, global security, and stability of our markets. That is so fundamentally important. That's why I'm so inspired and why I'm so happy to have the opportunity to be on the Intel team and hopefully contribute and make.
Oh, believe me, we're so glad to have you on the team because you bring in such a new perspective that's helping us to sell at a higher level, to really talk about bigger picture things and to drive new ideas into our technology. So, Thomas, welcome to the team. It's been wonderful
Yeah,
having you.
what a treat. I tell you what, when after you have a career like I did in the military and you want to join another team, and you want to keep serving and you want to keep contributing. I tell you, I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity, a better next chapter, right, in my life than to be able to do something like this and serve with everybody. I'm just so inspired by the leaders that I get to work with. Wow. I mean, we
Yeah,
got a
there's some really good. We got some really good guys on the
really
team.
good
So,
leadership team. And you know what I also like? So me being the digital immigrant here, I like the culture and I like the people and the patience they show me when I scratch my head when you start talking about nano this and Xeon that. I really appreciate everybody, with open arms saying, "Come on, Thomas, let me teach you this." And it's really great from beginning to end. I'm just really fortunate to be able to do this. I couldn't have ever imagined having a better opportunity than this. So thanks
well,
to
hey,
you, thanks to all the leaders and everybody there.
Thomas, thanks for coming on the show today. It's been very insightful, and thanks again. I'm sure we'll have you back on in 6 months or a year, and you're going to be like a total silicon expert. You'll be designing chips by that time.
Yeah. Hey, Darren. So before we check off, I did want to make just a final comment, if that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
What the other thing there's this is front microelectronics is front and center right now in a lot of discussions, right? And I would tell you one of the things I find really refreshing, and is that it is front and center in a lot of different forums, in defense forums, right? In discussions about national security. And so that really makes me feel good, right? To know that more and more every day we start to see not just the country's leadership, but all of the professions recognize just how fundamentally important the microelectronics industry is to all of these professions. I mean, think about something like telemedicine. Think about think about I have a daughter in college, right? My daughter during the pandemic, she continued to attend
Yeah.
college. How did she do that? I tell you what, she did it virtually through her computer. So I mean, when you step back and you think about all of that, but what I'm really refreshed and I'm really happy about is and I'm really assured that everybody has really put their arms around this thing and recognized just how fundamentally important that it is to our country and to the world to have a functioning ecosystem in the microelectronics industry. I tell you, that is tantamount to our national security and global security. And so I feel pretty good as I'm learning more and more, but I feel pretty good what I've seen a lot of people do to recognize and to take action when it comes to the microelectronics industry. So I really wanted to just kind of leave the conversation on that point, that we should feel good about what everybody is trying to do.
Oh no, I totally agree. I see a bright horizon ahead, and some really, really cool new innovation that's going to drive a lot of changes in the world. And we get the cool thing, Thomas, we get to be part of it.
Oh, I know.
I know, isn't that awesome?
I'm pinching myself, It's great. But listen,
great.
Darren, so sir, thank you. Just thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me, and not just for this podcast, but the numerous times that I've been able to attend some of your training events, or you just coaching me on the side. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Like I said, thank you for coming on the show, and welcome to the team. We're glad you're here. You only make us better. So. Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and do something wonderful.